All right, sometimes you get to see the decline of society in real time. Today, after I was done filming that short, I decided to walk into a small business run by a little old lady and her husband that keep this place open 7 days a week so that they can try and make a living. When I walked in, the first thing she said to me is, "I haven't seen you in a few weeks." And I said to her, "Nobody has money." And she responded with the same words right back at me. That's what the customer says, that they don't have money anymore, that they can't come here anymore because they don't have it. And she looked really depressed because you can tell when there are no customers, there's no business, there's no money. You have to go somewhere else to look for money. Working isn't so much about us desiring to work. In fact, that was a side conversation that we had, is that she didn't want to work. I don't want to work. No one wants to work, unfortunately. And I say this in a lot of my videos. We don't want jobs. We want money. Who cares about work? It's never going to pay enough to make us rich. So we don't care. The one thing we do care about is the money for rent and the money for food. And again, another side note here is that someone mentioned in the comment section how when they buy meat, especially chicken, that once you get it home and it defrosts, a bunch of water comes out of it. I've experienced that with chicken, but someone mentioned it with also with beef. And isn't that, what would you call that? Uh, okay, I'm just going to leave that alone because any words that I say might violate the algorithm. Because I think it's highway robbery, filling your meat with water. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about what's going on out there with the people that we're supposed to support, small business owners. Oh, save the small business owners, I hear every single time that there's a presidential campaign. They need your support. What's happened to the farmers? No one's supporting them. Even Laura Farms has said many times on her channel that without the soybeans, well, she doesn't really have a farm anymore. Without being able to export your crops, you can't you can't run a farm if you can't sell your product. Again, small business owners, they don't have the deep pockets that corporations have. And with that said, let's get into our opening monologue. You ever notice how every small business these days feels like a museum exhibit for a country that doesn't exist anymore? You walk in and it's just one tired owner, an open sign that's more symbolic than functional, and the echoes of thousands of unpaid bills. They say the economy's booming, but the only thing booming is debt collectors calling people who can't even afford a Happy Meal. We're not lazy, we're just working 40 hours a week to afford nothing, and somehow it still feels like it's our fault that nobody's coming in anymore. Well, when people in the comment section on my short today say that even Walmart's too expensive, that's a sure sign that things have changed out there. No one's ever said that Walmart's too expensive because Walmart prides itself on being the cheapest option for the cheapest people with the worst possible employees. And I know this for a fact. I worked there for 2.5 years. It wasn't a few weeks, it wasn't a few months. It started to become a lifestyle of just living at the bottom off whatever you could scrape by because that's what you did. You took any job in order to survive, but now any job isn't enough to keep the lights on or keep you fed. It's like 8 hours of being tortured in a place that doesn't want to pay you. In fact, we've gotten closer and closer in this economy to where they want to treat people like slaves. They want you working and being as profitable as possible, as productive as possible, but at the end of the week, all of your efforts working like the owner, showing up, putting your head down, and working only to get a paycheck that looks like it's anorexic. You look at it and it needs at least a few more zeros on the end. But instead of of complaining about it, because we all know what happens when you say anything, right? That's why company surveys never get answered honestly because no one wants to have that uncomfortable conversation about what they said in a survey. So we don't fill them out. We just look at them like a dirty diaper. It's like, that's not for me. I'll pass on that one. But You just have to not complain. The system is actually built around that. Any person who doesn't like it is going to be seen as a naysayer, as an ungrateful person to be making $15 an hour. And if there's one thing that we know that corporations don't want, they don't want workers showing up at work depressed. Because a depressed worker is a less productive worker, because a depressed worker is thinking about things like rent and food when they should be thinking about increasing profits. But if you've worked hourly jobs your entire life, like I have, and notice that they're lacking when it comes to the overall quality of life that you can reach with those jobs, I think more people are waking up to the idea that this is not going to get any better in their lifetime. I actually read something this morning that retirement doesn't look like retirement anymore, and that most people's retirement looks pretty freaking ugly. I think they said only 1 in 5 people are currently saving for retirement right now because the rest of the people are living paycheck to paycheck, wondering what they're going to sell next in order to be able to pay the rent next week. And this is the elephant in the room, but Blue asked me, and I saw an article this morning where the Arizona governor said herself, sorry, poor people, there's no money for food stamps this month. We're going to have to depend more on community resources in order to help people not get murked by not having food. We all knew this was coming, except we didn't realize that it was going to be coming this quickly. It's like during the pandemic when they kept extending the benefits, and then they'd get right to the end and then they'd extend them again, or they'd cut them off for 2 weeks. It's just a clown show up above in leadership because they don't suffer. If those people making those decisions, those people not coming back and reopening the government weren't getting paid, they would have gone back to work within seconds. Because again, money motivates, poverty, not so much. Let's get into talking point number 1. Every politician says the economy is strong, but walk outside. It's just empty stores, maxed out cards, and people who can't afford to breathe without financing it. The system didn't collapse overnight. It just got too expensive for regular people to participate in. We're not lazy. We're priced out of our own country. Today, the same small business owner asked me, well, if people had money last year, why don't people have money this year? Because everyone jacked up their credit cards hoping that this was a temporary problem. Not getting a raise in 4 years isn't a temporary problem. And with the value of your dollar declining, not only did you not get a raise, that means inflation went up, but your MIC paycheck buys a lot less. And so when she looked at me, it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yes, credit card debt in America is a crisis. Why? Because we all turned to the one thing we had hoped would get us through in the short term. Now all the credit cards are maxed out, and things are even worse than when you maxed them out before. That's why these companies, the pay later companies, where you can buy a burrito, eat it today, and then make 4 payments on it, that's why they exist. Because people are that desperate. Again, we didn't expect for things to stay this bad this long. No one expected for this to happen. And yet, people are out there wondering what they did. Why did this happen? Well, it's it's not rocket science, people. When you make choices and then there are consequences, that's what America did. America beat America last year. To owning the libs has turned into you not getting your food stamps. You wondering whether or not you're going to be able to afford your Section 8 housing, whether or not your health care is going away. Consequences, people. You make decisions and there are consequences. That's what we're experiencing right now. America made bad decisions. America decided to get involved with Susie Rottencrotch, and now they're wondering why they have herpes. Well, what did you think was going to happen when you touched Susie? You think that she's clean? No. No, when it comes to policies and politicians and policymakers, they're not clean. These are people who are desperate to line their own pockets, and guess what? They don't care about you, Susie Rottencrotch. In fact, you're completely invisible to them. 40 million people are going to need food in a few days. And guess what? It's not coming. It's not. They may shut it off indefinitely because that's what they were planning on doing anyway. Why not shut it off early? Why not turn the valve off a little early and just see what happens? Because all the testimonials that the Epic Economist has shown in the last few weeks are showing that people need government benefits now more than ever, possibly closer to conditions of the Great Depression. Because you're working, but in a real sense, you're not working. Because what you're earning is just not real anymore. And I'm sitting here in the dark because I don't want to run the lights because power bills have gotten ridiculous. I ate ramen for 2 meals today. Do you think I feel good about life? Should you feel good about life right now? Should you wonder whether or not you're ever going to go on vacation again? Or whether or not you're going to be a layoff next week? Those are real possibilities for everyone in this country. Let's walk into talking point number 2. The rich tell us to support small business right after they ship every job overseas and raise rent on every inch of earth left behind. The same people who killed the middle class now sell us candles about grind culture and call it empowerment. Late stage capitalism isn't even pretending to be moral anymore. It's just running on fumes and irony. That's the word I was looking for, moral. There is no morals in this country anymore. If you can take advantage of another person, you will. And the worst part is that if you were in that situation, you would do the same thing too. You push your neighbor out of the way, you kick him in the rear, and take what you thought was rightfully yours. It's like small business owners, right? Who pay their workers, their landscaping workers, minimum wage while they try to become $1 million a year business. How do they do this? No health care, no dental, no benefits of any kind, no days off, no holidays, no nothing. It's just pure, I'm just going to call it straight up what it is, pure slavery. You're building the pyramids for them, and they don't appreciate you. The second they notice that you're not as productive as you used to be, they're just going to kick you right off the pyramid. Why? Because it benefits them. And someone with a master's degree and a ridiculous amount of experience is going to take that job. Not because they want to, because they have to. The desperation economy is great for business because it makes the people who otherwise wouldn't touch that grubby, disgusting job take it. Because they look on Indeed and what do they see? They see nothing but ridiculous jobs wanting things that you can imagine. And all for one low price. And stability? No thank you. Anything that helps you? No way. Right down to healthcare. Because the last thing a pro wants to do is get sick. This morning, there was a guy in the gym and he was coughing up a storm. You could tell he was really sick. But instead of staying home, he came to work out because the dude probably had more steroids in his body than actual blood. You could just tell. When you look around in the gym, you can just tell who's on steroids. They're veiny, they're huge, they're disgruntled. When you're on steroids, you're not happy because your whole body chemistry is abnormal. For you to look like that, it's not just on the outside, it's on the inside. I've met girls who have dated guys who are prepping to go on stage to do a bodybuilding competition. They said they're constantly roid raging. They're unpredictable. And I think that unpredictability, that same feelings of not knowing what's going to happen and constant fear rushing into your brain, I think that's part of the American society now. Because everyone is concerned about empty shelves in the grocery store or just not being able to go into the grocery store anymore. And I think that community aggression is very similar to what happens in a society where resources are limited to only a certain few, whether that's housing, transportation, or just about anything that requires money. Anything that requires you to do something you don't want, something that causes you to have to go sit back there behind the Taco Bell and do your dirty, filthy business, because that's what we do as proles. We're dirty, we're disgusting. And ordinary people with money don't look at us as people that need anything. They look at us with a sense of almost dread having to interact with poor people. In fact, it's normal not to turn the other way. And again, this is the reason why I personally feel like there's a mental health crisis in America, because everyone seems to be wondering what's going to happen next. How are things going to get worse for me in real time today? Talking point number 3. Nobody's buying anything, not because they don't want to, but because the American dream now costs $2,300 a month in rent, and your sanity on top of it. We're all working full time just to stay poor and slightly better lighting. The only thing still growing in this economy is denial and corporate profit margins. You have to be in denial. That crazy amount of toxic positivity that you fill your head with walking over to the lottery machine like you've already won. This is something that gets me. Every time I go to Quick Trip, the fountain drinks are right next to the lottery machine. And no matter how many times I go, I see a person. Usually, I would say a person that works outside based on their clothes. They slip it a couple of 20s with that gleam in their eye like, I've already won. You know, and then you look at them after they scratch it off and they realize it's like, oh my God, that was my last $40. I made the decision to buy lottery tickets instead of putting gas in my car, and now what am I going to do? Well, there's always one thing you can do, but we're not allowed to talk about that here. That violates my own community guidelines, folks. So here, let's go ahead and finish this up. That's the real punchline, isn't it? An entire country where people work themselves into the ground just to keep the lights on. In stores no one can afford to shop in. We're all trying to survive in an economy that feeds billionaires and starves everyone else. And we call it freedom. So yeah, nobody's coming in anymore. Not because we stopped caring, but because capitalism already locked the door from the inside. And if that doesn't make you angry, you've been broke so long, you started calling it normal. Remember what I always say? They've been trying to normalize this for years. The low wages, the long hours, the fact that everything tastes like crap. It's been normalized. That's why I can't take it anymore. There's a lot of people who won't say the kinds of things that I say because they're afraid. But if someone isn't saying it, then it's being normalized. And you're part of the problem. The more you allow them to normalize these conditions for us, it's disgusting. It's despicable. It's downright weird that we can have an entire society that, I mean, think of this. 7 million people went out to quietly, politely protest last weekend. Why? Because they're aware that the future that they have isn't one that they want. And like me, I don't have a past. I live in the present. I don't think about the future. I don't think about saving for retirement. I don't think about saving money, because what money do you have to save? You don't have a future. You have to live in the now, or else you'll go crazy thinking about what's going to happen to you, adding further to the mental health crisis in America. Because even in real time, you acknowledge the fact that things don't smell good. And it's not just your feet anymore. It's everything. I was scratching my rear end a little while ago and I smelled my fingers and I was like, yep, that's the smell of daily life for the proletariat.